What's going on, YouTube? A great wild card weekend sends us into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We're back with another episode of the Hurry Up Offense. TJ Winger alongside JT Creed and Mason Cannon for another week of hopefully some great football in our hands. Guys, how have the last 7 days treated y'all?
Good playoff games. Hopefully it keeps up.
And Mason, how's the last week been?
Pretty good. I wouldn't say there was a lot of good games. There's a few good ones though. Yeah, good man.
Really, the best game was played at Mason's crib this past weekend with all three of us, of course, playing some stellar poker. WSOP, watch out. The three of us are on the come up here, so lots of money to be made. Speaking of money to be made, all three of us actually hit on our locks of the week, so be sure to stick with us. We're going to preview all the games and then, of course, give you some locks of the week at the end of the episode. But real quick, before we get started, kind of a tough weekend for the NFC East, depending on at least who your fan base is. But Mike McCarthy, I've heard a lot of he needs to win at least one playoff game where he's gone. I think he should be gone. Sirianni, that's kind of a tougher situation for me in Philadelphia. I think they should keep him, kind of revamp those coordinators. But I want to get y'all's opinions. What should happen with McCarthy and Sirianni? JT, let me hear what you got.
I think I'd keep them both. So McCarthy, I think the issue with the Cowboys, to me, it's more of a Dak issue than it is Cowboy issue. I talk about it all the time. I don't think Dak is all that good. It doesn't surprise me that he beats up on bad teams. It isn't great. When it counts against good teams, better teams, with higher stakes, it doesn't surprise me a whole lot. A lot of people compare him to Kirk Cousins, so I kind of see a lot of similarities when it comes to the bigger games against decent opponents. So I think it's more of a Dak problem than McCarthy, so I'd probably keep him around. I don't think he's lost the locker room or anything, so I don't think that's really an issue. People tend to play for him, I guess, decently. And then on the Sirianni front, I hate Nick Sirianni, but I wouldn't fire him. The year after going to a Super Bowl, the coordinators haven't been great this year. And I think they got hit with people being able to stop the tush push, being able to stop some of their offensive game plan, and they didn't adjust very well. But I don't know that you can fire him for not adjusting, mid-season per se, but kind of give him a full offseason to open up his offensive playbook a little bit, kind of see how it goes from there. I gave him one more year. Give him one more year to kind of show if he can develop the offenses more than what it was this year.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, especially when you think about this is the first time that he's had to hire, because I'm pretty sure Gannon and Steichen were the guys he brought in when he first got the job in Philadelphia, if I'm remembering that correctly. This is the first time that he's ever had to deal with turnover and have to make new hires, and that can be a little bit of a tougher proposition, especially for a first-time head coach. So I agree with that, and I think, hey, bring in Ken Dorsey. If Mike Vrabel doesn't get a head coaching job, pay that man a bag to be your DC, and all of a sudden things could look really good in Philadelphia. Mason, let me get your thoughts on McCarthy and Sirianni.
Yeah, I think you could argue both sides as to why they need to go or why they need to stay. I think McCarthy should definitely go over Sirianni. Because I don't know, some things never change for the Dallas Cowboys, and we saw it again this year. They coast throughout the regular season, and then you lose first round of the playoffs. So I feel like something's got to change there, but I kind of hear what JT was saying. It's more of a Dak issue than it is a coaching issue. But like I said, you can kind of argue both sides of that one. And for Nick Sirianni, can't stand the guy.
I might have asked the wrong two people about Sirianni.
Right. Yeah. But going 1-6 in the last 7 games has got to raise some red flags. So something's got to change. I like what JT was saying with the coordinator situation. I think that's your first step. But it would be interesting to see what happens.
I think it's a lot easier to say as non-Eagles and non-Cowboys fans.
Sure.
If this happens to your team, I'm sure you want everybody gone.
Sure.
So it's easier to see from a third-party perspective, have a little bit of a cooler head on the situation. So I can see why fans are fed up.
Really, the Philadelphia thing, it's amazing to me to see how quick it's turned on Sirianni, especially when locker room problems are there. We don't have access to that, so we just don't know how much of a hand he has in that. But I think back to when the Steelers started 12-0 or 11-0, whatever it was, and then finished the year 12-4, losing the wild card. Nobody was calling for Tomlin's job, and the Steelers weren't even in the Super Bowl the year before that. If there was anything that was a disastrous downturn, that was the year to do something. Always tying it back to the Steelers. I am. So I think I can see the case for Sirianni. McCarthy, 1 playoff win in 4 years. The roster that good. Sorry, that's not cutting it for me. But anyways, that's a little bit of the head coaching news. I'm really interested to see how the rest of this coaching carousel plays out. But let's talk about the NFL divisional round now. And it kicks off with a banger. Man, I was texting y'all. I should have bought these Baltimore Ravens tickets because any of their potential matchups for fire. It's either Flacco's return with Cleveland, or it's the Steelers Ravens game, or what we have here, CJ Stroud, the eventual rookie of the year, taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore favored by 9 at home. JT, this is the number one seed in the AFC. They have a week off. Do you think they cover 9 points? Or do you think the hot hand rolls into Baltimore and keeps it interesting?
9 is way too many points for me. The way that CJ Stroud played last week and how he's been playing all year, I just don't see any team. The Ravens are good, but they're not a team that I see as like an absolute juggernaut that some people are kind of seeing them as. I think they're good, and I don't know that they lose this game, but 9 points is just too many. I love the Texans plus 9. Like I said, just the way that CJ Stroud's playing, I would bank on him to hit his passing props again this week. With a tighter game script, they probably won't get off to quite as big of a lead as they were last week. So I really like all of his props, and then of course Nico Collins props as well. So I don't know. I think they keep it close. I don't know that the Texans can necessarily pull it off. It does feel kind of. I think I talked about this before last week's episode, where it's somewhat of a letdown spot that you always see for rookie quarterbacks, just not quite being able to do it in the playoffs. So we could see a little bit of a slip up with CJ, but I think he's kind of matchup proof and like rookie like game script proof.
Well, and Mason, I'm going to throw it to you in a second. Really, as much as this is a fun matchup, Houston versus like Baltimore, this is Bobby Slowick coming off a game where I think he almost solidified that he's going to be a head coach next year versus Mike McDonald, who was apparently widely seen as like a tier 1 head coaching candidate, and they're going to go head to head. So I think that's really fun. And I think Slowick did a great job using Cleveland's aggressiveness against them. And a lot of that trickeration, bait and switch, Dalton Schultz wide open in the corner of the end zone. He did a whole lot of that. I don't know what buttons you press against Mike McDonald. So I'm really interested to see what his game plan looks like. Anyways, quick point aside, I'm going to go ahead and take Houston plus 9. I've already used this in a parlay that I'll talk about at the end of the video when we talk about plays. So I like the Texans as well, JT. Mason, let me hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think 9 points is way too much as well. The only thing that concerns me is the weather. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be looking like.
Oh.
You're not in the dome now. So that could be some issues for the Texans. You got the Ravens who've kind of been rested. They should be good to go, but the Texans could, mess around and win this game. They looked good last week against that defense. Now you got the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be tougher, but I think 9 is too many points. So I definitely like the plus 9. I think they keep it close. And I do like the under as well, under 44. So
I think that's a sneaky solid shout. Like I could see this becoming a grinded out defensive type of game pretty quickly. Especially first round bye teams. Sometimes they come out a little rusty. To me, this is either going to sail past 44 and it's going to land somewhere closer to 60.
I think it sails past.
That or it ends up being like a 1917 game, and it's pretty comfortably on there. It's going to be. I don't think it's going to hit the number of 44, basically. But no, I think all that's really interesting shouts. And I love Wild Card Weekend, but I really like the divisional round because I feel like we're at a spot now where everybody but one team, I think if they brought their best game to the field, they could beat any of the other teams. Like I think at this point, anybody's best game could beat someone else, except for one team that we'll talk about a little bit later on, playing the first game on Sunday. But yeah, so it sounds like we're all on Houston here. And like I said earlier, I have a parlay with them. Partnered up with something else. JC, any other thoughts on this game?
High of 27, no rain or snow though. So
okay.
Yeah, it'll be cold, but I don't know. 27 is not enough for me to play anything differently. Yeah. 15 degrees, 10 degrees, maybe. 27 is not crazy, especially during a day game.
And since we all kind of live in that area, I haven't heard anything about like major wind or any like storms like that, kind of like what we saw last week where a couple of games are 20 plus, 25 plus mile an hour winds. Sounds like it'll be kind of normal East Coast, mid-January weather. So that's good for both passers in this one. I also really like Lamar passing plus rushing props. If you're looking for something for DraftKings, that one I looked was at 282. I feel pretty good about that, especially if you think it's going to be an offensive slugfest. All right, then to the Saturday nightcap. I mean, talking about some of the hottest hands and hottest teams coming in the league. I mean, the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love since week 11 has, I think, solidified he's going to be the starter for Green Bay next year pretty comfortably. And now he gets to take on the 49ers and their team coming off a first round bye. Shanahan, we know what he does. So really fun matchup, but another one to where, if you're asking me, 9.5 points is way too much. I love this San Francisco team. I think Green Bay keeps it close enough, but they do eventually lose. I think San Francisco wins, Green Bay covers. Mason, what do you think?
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. So thank you, TJ.
I can see you thinking it.
Yeah. 9.5 is too many. Packers look good a couple days ago. I think the Niners win this game for sure. But if Jordan Love goes out there and plays like he did last week, could be a little bit more closer than people think. But yeah, I'll roll with the Packers plus 9.5 is my lean. So We'll see.
Hey, JT, what do you think about this one?
I think the Niners rout them, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a super close game. I could see 17+ point win on the Niners side. I just think Shanahan coming off a bye, the players coming off a bye, it's a more seasoned kind of veteran team coming off a full week of rest with a full game plan. I just don't see much. Also, we saw what the Packers do well last week. So that's all the 49ers are going to be like.
Totally.
It's almost like a gift and a curse when you play really well the week before because you show everything that you do well, and that's all the other team really has to focus on. So I think the Niners are just in a good spot to kind of just, rout them at home. I just don't. I think that the rosters are pretty different in terms of talent level, and like I said, just given that full week of rest, I think it's going to be a lot less close than some might think. And I'm also kind of banking on Jordan Love and his inconsistency that we see in terms of like passing accuracy. He was great last week. I just don't know if he can continue that going. So that's kind of what I'm banking on with the Niners -9.5.
Because even in this little stretch where he's played really well since week 11, there's still been 1 or 2 duds in there. And it feels like, okay, he's been great the last 3 to 4 weeks. When's the egg coming? And I say the same thing about Joe Barry. Like this guy went from like hottest seat of any coordinator in the league to like the last 3 or 4 weeks, like they've had decent results. Against Shanahan, that's a different story though. Like I feel like this is when they get exposed. And kind of piggybacking off your point, JT, like difference in rosters coming into the season. If you told me the Packers made the playoffs, I'd be like, oh, really? Interesting. If you told me the 49ers were the 1 seed, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Doesn't really surprise me. It's them or Philadelphia. So I think that kind of backs up your point. And kind of put a nail in the coffin here. Like I said, I think San Francisco wins, and there's really only one side I'm looking at player props for, and it's the 49ers. I don't really know how much I can trust, Jade Reed after he kind of screwed me last week. I'm looking to go in a different direction this week, but Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Green Bay's giving up a ton of rushing yards. I'm looking at Brock Purdy's rushing prop here to try to take advantage of that matchup too. So yeah, it sounds like we're all on the 49ers, but I'm hoping Green Bay keeps it close. Mason, you just took the Packers 9.5 too, right?
Yeah, kind of like you. I kind of hope they keep it close. But JT brought up some good points, so I could see it go either way.
And I probably won't touch it because I don't want to be the guy coaching his bets. I'm not on the side, so I can't manufacture.
I just think if they get down early, I think the Packers are just going to kind of fall into shambles.
Yeah. And San Francisco is one of the slippery slopes of the team. You fall behind after they score on that opening drive. They have long possessions. They eat up clock. It is tough to overcome that. So you might be spot on. Green Bay's been pretty soft against the run for the most part this year. All right, let's jump into Sunday. Buccaneers and Lions. Sorry, Tampa Bay fans. You were the one team that I talked about in the divisional round where your best game probably doesn't beat everybody playing this weekend, where I think that could be true for everyone else. I've already put the Lions money line as something I have in a parlay. So I like the Lions to win here. 6 points, honestly. I think Detroit covers that. I think we saw a spirited effort put together by Tampa Bay. This is where it kind of comes to a conclusion. I think pretty comfortably the worst team left in the playoffs. Great story. Awesome to see him here, but they're the odd man out at this point. Mason, what do you think about Bucs Lions?
Yeah, like you said, great story. Absolutely. I want to take the Bucs so bad.
I know you do.
Do it.
No, I'm not betting regardless, but
hey, plus 215, that's hot.
Dude, it's hot. It's
good
hot.
Value.
I don't know if you guys watched the game last night, but obviously the Eagles didn't show up. But the Bucs look good. Scored 30 points. They kind of did everything well for the most part. They can keep that going against Detroit. I think they keep it close. I think they covered that 6 points. But I still think the Lions edge it out at home. And they go play in the NFC Championship next week. So we'll see.
Which, hey, if I were to knock on Roger Goodell's office, which one of these two teams he wants to see in the Super Bowl, I can say with confidence he wants it to be the Detroit Lions because that'd be a great story. JT, what do you think about this matchup?
I love the Bucs +6. I think the line should be.
Did not see that coming.
No, yeah, I think the line should be around 3. To be honest, I think it should be a 3-point line. So 6, I really like the value I'm getting there, especially if you push it out as a teaser leg, get even more with it. Baker was pretty dialed last night against the Eagles secondary, and I think that the Lions secondary to me is similar in some ways as far as some of their holes in the back end, and I think that Baker doesn't struggle quite as much when there aren't elite secondaries, and he's able to kind of fit. He's all about timing. He doesn't have a crazy arm. He doesn't have the crazy athleticism to kind of create extra windows late in the play clock, stuff like that. But if he can stay in rhythm against a not great secondary, I think they definitely keep it within 6. Yeah, I don't know. I just lean the +6. I'm not sure that they win the game, but I also don't hate the value at plus 215. I think the teams in general are a lot closer than people think.
Don't hate that whatsoever. All right, so let me kind of piggyback on some of that, and specifically from a player props angle, because I've already bet a handful of these guys. Part of the reason I bet some of this is game script, because like I said, I think the Lions win. Baker's passing props way too low. It's like at 239 again. Let me get the exact number. And then Mike Evans at 62.5 against this secondary. What are we doing? Like that's the play of the week to me. One of. And then Rashad White, 21.5 receiving yards. I'm all over that. I'm all over that.
I just don't think that we're going to see a second week where they just let Jared Goff sit back for 5 seconds and make every read.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
And that's what this comes down to. You watch Monday Night Football, and the Eagles are doing nothing to help pick up any blitz that Todd Bowles is bringing. There's no tight end protection. There's no running back staying in chip or anything like that. Ben Johnson's not going to let that happen, especially when you have someone like Sam Laporta, when you have someone like David Montgomery. Like, the blitz is going to be picked up in this one. It just comes down to how effective that is. Like if there's free rushes against Goff, he looks rough. And actually, I sent y'all the stat on Twitter, and I think it was Field Yates who tweeted it, but it's a really interesting stat where basically Goff was perfect when he wasn't pressured. And there was only 5 passes where he was pressured and he went 0 for 5. That's the game. Can Todd Bowles get home with his pressure? If you think he can,
Todd Bowles is going to send him.
Dude, that's crazy.
He's send him. This man's blitz rate's like 50%. It's insane. What'd you say, Mace?
You were saying that about Goff against the Rams?
Yeah, he went 0 for 5 when pressured, but that was all the pressure.
It's crazy that McVay or their DC didn't make those adjustments.
Yeah, well, I think they tried. But the Lions' offensive line's great. Also, I think Raheem Morris is a really good defensive coordinator, but he was consistently dropping something called Michael Hoyt into coverage as this former 300-pound defensive tackle, and it's like, what the hell is that?
They were also running Donald on a lot of stunts, and like the best part about Aaron Donald is his first step forward.
Yeah.
Why would you take the time to make him run around?
Yeah.
Right.
To let the offense get set. It's just they were running some weird like concepts at the line.
And I don't hate it, but after you see it's not working, stop. Because it's just, you're adding time for him to get to the quarterback. So I don't hate it as an idea, but if it's not working, cut it out and let's get to stuff that does work. All right. Something I think that will work is a Sunday night game. I mean, we've gone into a lot of Bills Chiefs games being like super amped. I think this one lives up to the hype again. I can't wait to see these two quarterbacks go head to head. Let me hear Mason. Let me hear your thoughts on this one. Right now, it's Buffalo at home. I think that's another big component here. First time these two have had to meet in the playoffs in Buffalo. Bills favored by 3. Where are you leaning?
Sorry, my screen went black. I think I like the Chiefs to get it done. As much as I hate to say it, I think Mahomes gets his first road playoff game under his belt. I think they come out. They look really good in the weather against the Dolphins last weekend. So now you're going to Buffalo, some familiar territory with the weather. They can do the same thing they did last week. I think they have no issue. I think it's going to be a tight game back and forth most way, but I don't know. I got a feeling that the Chiefs got this one. I think Rashee Rice is turning in to be his true number 1. Defense looks good. And I just think Josh Allen is not going to be able to get it done against Pat Mahomes again. So that's my lean.
Real quick, before I throw it to JT, I forgot to mention Baker, 245.5 passing yards. So it's a little higher than I thought, but still, I think he clears that with ease. Yep. But JT, tell me what you think. Chiefs and Bills. You were the only one on the Chiefs last week. Granted, I didn't know the weather was going to be quite as disastrous as it ended up being. And Miami definitely could not operate in that. So as the only person on the Chiefs, do you think they go and get their first playoff road win under the Pat Mahomes era, or is Josh Allen and the Bills getting it done?
No, I like the Bills. Mostly because they're at home, but also just in general. I think to me, it's more of like the Bills' window is this year.
Sure.
For me, this is their Super Bowl year, and if they don't get it done, I don't know that they get it done. So I'm just kind of banking on that making a lot of sense with one of the easier paths through the AFC that we've seen in quite some time. So I kind of like the line at -3. I think that's about where it should be. I don't hate it if you bet the Chiefs or if you bet the Bills, but I think they get it done. I think Josh Allen plays well enough, and we saw him use his legs a ton this past weekend, and I think he continues that against the Chiefs secondary or just Chiefs defense in general. And the glaring flaw of the Chiefs is going to bite them. They just still don't have receivers. It's a roster issue. There's not a ton that, Pat Mahomes can even do about it. The offensive coordinator can't do but so much about it. They tried to involve Mecole Hardman on like every 5th play last week, and it was a nightmare. Like it just didn't work. And it's almost like they're trying to overcome it, but the roster's just not great on the wide receiver depth.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and kind of hitting on a few points and then talking about some player props. It's interesting. This is a year where it feels like Patrick Mahomes has a few weapons as we've seen during his career. Meanwhile, Josh Allen maybe has more weapons than he's ever had in his career. And of course, we have to talk about Gabe Davis coming back. And I don't normally give a shit about Gabe Davis. I think he's kind of overrated, and I think he's one note. But after seeing L'Jarius Sneed, as Tyreek Hill put it, bump his ass back to Cancun, you can't do that to Gabe Davis. That's the one thing he is legitimately great at, always winning at the line of scrimmage and being a deep threat. Ask Mike Hughes, the ghost of the former Kansas City Chief corner, about Gabe Davis in a playoff game. Man has some words to say for sure. And then on JT's note about specifically Josh Allen rushing props, on DraftKings, I love his passing plus rushing number at 282. It's a pretty big number, but this game is riding on the shoulders of Josh Allen if the Bills win. And I also really like Patrick Mahomes over 27.5 rushing yards. He did it in one play last week. I think the same thing can be true this year. The linebacking play for Buffalo hasn't been great, and it really only takes one breakdown for Mahomes to get that. And then, Mason, you mentioned Rashee Rice. He looked great last week, and I have a hard time thinking he finishes any game the rest of the playoffs with less than 10 targets. So I like his receiving prop too, because I think the volume is finally consistently hitting him. So any other props or any other plays or any other angles you guys are looking at for this one?
I think all the passing yards, those lines are pretty low. I think Josh Allen's is in the 230s, and Mahomes is in the 232.5, and then Mahomes is at 260.5. They both feel low to me.
Yeah. The only thing that I think holds that back is if Josh Allen runs for a 52-yard touchdown. That might be the only thing that kind of keeps it. That's why I'm doing the rushing plus passing. But I totally agree. There's a lot of value there.
Well, it corresponds with the overall over-under at 45.5, which is low.
Sure.
This game traditionally is in the 50s, I would say, for the over-under. So it kind of corresponds with that as far as props go. But that's just something that, I don't know. I think they're too low. I think the over-under is too low as well. I love the over at 45.5.
45. Oh, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I don't think the weather's supposed to be terrible again in Buffalo. I don't think there's going to be any postponements either. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what Bills player receiving prop I like the most. I think Kincaid. His lines were way too low last week, so I think they're going to over.
Still low.
They were too low last week. That's what I'm saying.
It's 39.5.
30. Well, I'm going to bet that as soon as we get off the call.
Oh, dude,
that's. I figured it'd be 45. Wow. I thought they would overcorrect, go to 45.5, and then that's that.
Right.
I think that Khalil Shakir versus Trent McDuffie is a pretty tough matchup. L'Jarius Sneed, Diggs, I don't love that. Maybe I'm leaning into Gabe Davis and Dalton Kincaid this week. I think I'm definitely leaning Kincaid. 39.5. That's egregious. And then maybe James Cook receiving yards. That could be another guy.
Longest completion props are insanely low for these two quarterbacks. 33.5 for Josh Allen, 34.5 for Mahomes.
Completions?
Longest completion.
Oh, longest completion.
Yeah. Dude, Jared Goff and Stafford were at like 38 last week.
Yeah. And the other thing about this is like both these teams have firepower that can just turn a 4-yard catch into either one of those. Like if you told me Diggs had a catch and run for 40, I'm like, yeah, maybe, probably. We've seen it. Yeah, so. Or Khalil Shakir spinning out of a touchdown or spinning out of a tackle, getting a touchdown and still finishing short of his yardage prop. I don't know how my mans did that to me yesterday. Anyways, my soapbox aside, let's get into our plays and locks of the week. I think I'm going to go ahead and go in a different direction here. I have a few different plays I like. If I were going to go a parlay, I did Houston plus 14, Lions money line. That comes out to plus 104. So it's essentially a teaser, but Houston don't lose by 2 touchdowns, Lions win. But I think my lock of the week is Amon-Ra St. Brown receiving yards over, I think I see it at, 89.5. If the Buccaneers are going to bring the blitz, say that 10 times fast. If Bucs are bringing pressure, the quick pass is going to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think this man has a ton of receptions, a ton of yards, probably scores a tud. If you're looking to build a player parlay, I think you do it through Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's my lock of the week. JT, what you got?
I'm just going to go with a player prop. I'm going to go Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I like that.
That's at plus 100 right now on DraftKings. So that's going to be my lock of the week. I think he gets at least 2 in. I don't care who they go to. It's the best part about betting it. But I think he throws at least 2 in, probably runs 1 in as well.
And we're doing this on Tuesday. I bet there's closing line value. I bet by the time we get to kickoff with how much hype builds, that's minus 125 or something like that, minus 130 by the time we get to kick on Sunday night. Mason, what's your lock for the week?
So I'm going to go with a 3-legger, as always. Maybe this one will hit. We'll see. Texans plus 9. Bucks plus 7.5. I bought a point. And then Chiefs plus 7.5, just to make that one a little.
I like that too.
So plus 332.
With that value, you're basically just asking our divisional weekend to be close games.
Close games.
That's not out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. Love that.
Yep.
Love that. So there you have it. All three of us are coming off a win during the wild card weekend in our locks of the week. Looking to go a perfect 3 for 3 once again. I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. JT's got Josh Allen passing touchdowns. Mason's got a nice little 3-team. We're a couple teams on the road trying to keep it close, but I like where his head's at because divisional weekend to me is the best weekend of the football season, in my opinion. But any other player prompts? Any other plays you want to let out? Let me let out this monster 6-leg prize picks I put together while we were recording. Rashad White over 21.5 receiving yards. Jameer Gibbs over 23.5 receiving yards. Amon-Ra's prop. Mike Evans over 62.5. Mahomes over 27.5 rushing. Baker over 245 passing. To me, I don't want to be wrong, and I'm jinxing myself, knocking on wood here, but I just can't see how that doesn't hit. I just love it so much. Any other plays? Any other props? Any other numbers you guys like?
Any same game parlay for the Chiefs Bills? Just spam the overs. I just think that all the lines and what I think might have happened is the low for that game that day is 20 degrees. Now the wind is only like 10, 12 miles an hour. So that's pretty typical, especially in a stadium. It shouldn't affect much. I think maybe the game that we saw with the Chiefs Dolphins have kind of affected some of those lines, brought them down a little bit for cold weather kind of stuff. So I think the lines are just completely misplaced in that game and they're just too low.
I like it. Mason, anything else you wanted to shout out?
Possibly Debo to find the end zone. It's plus 100. I kind of like that. And then this last one I'm pulling up right now just to get the number.
I think any McCaffrey prop, to be honest.
True.
Yeah, I like McCaffrey too. And I think we were watching before you got there, TJ. Me and JT were watching the Texans game, and the Texans were sending a lot of pressure. So I think if they do that again, I think Lamar's rushing prop is free. I just think it'll be too much. So that's at 52.5. So I think he clears that.
Yeah, and on Prize Picks, his passing and rushing totals like 282. So I like that one a ton in my Prize Picks place. But guys, that's going to do it for our divisional round preview. Be sure to come back next weekend when we're talking about the AFC and NFC conference championships, who will head to the Super Bowl. Really excited to preview those games once we get there. That'll come out next Wednesday. Of course, be sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. You know, what plays do you like the most, both from a spread perspective, total, as well as player props. Want to hear what you guys think down below. Maybe we'll tell your favorite play for the week. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Want to see more of the Hurry Up Offense and more football content in general. But until next time, for my co-host JT and Mason, my name's TJ, and we are signing off.